Finding Hope, the Road to Recovery.
Welcome everybody to Ayeneh. We are focused on recovery, resilience, and transformation. My name is Dr. James B. Golden. I have the absolute honor and privilege to be the Chief Academic Officer and co-founder of TTC College. Just a little bit about TTC College for those of you who may not have heard about it. We're becoming famous a little bit, but the college is a small to mid-sized behavioral health medical school that's based in Woodland Hills. Our headquarters is in Woodland Hills, California, but we serve people all over the state of California, people looking to become drug counselors, people looking to become peer support specialists. We have a GED program, a whole bunch of different things. And so I have an honor today to sit with somebody who not only are they my past student and somebody that I've mentored, but this is someone that I consider a part of our TTC College family, and I feel that he's definitely a part of my family. You're going to get to know a little bit more about him today, and he's going to talk about his journey through TTC College. He's going to talk a little bit about his life, his career, and the goal is to help inspire people who are looking to become a part of this behavioral health field to see that this is real. There are real people, and we are making a real impact. So without further ado, I want to take a moment and introduce you all to Bruce McDaniel. And we have the virtual clap going on because we don't have a studio audience.
Thank you.
But welcome, Bruce. I'm so excited. Now, we do this all the time.
We do.
But we're doing this on camera today, and we're going to really jump in and just talk about some different things.
Okay.
I want you to go back. It's been some years now. So
Yes.
Go back to the moment that you were sitting at your computer and you made the decision, you know what's a good idea? I'm going to go ahead and put my application in at TTC College. Take us through.
Wow. So the biggest reason that made me want to join TTC College was the fact that I am in recovery. So being in recovery, I want to impact as many people as possible. And I felt that having some type of certification, additional education under my belt would allow me to be able to reach more people. Because, you know, attending AA meetings, NA meetings, had the pleasure of doing my first CGA meeting last night, doing all those things.
What's CGA?
CGA is Criminals and Gang Members Anonymous. So it's not
so dope.
So it was amazing. It's not substance based, it's lifestyle based, where as even in AA and NA, you'll hear a lot of times you're addicted to the lifestyle that comes along with drinking and using. Now this is based around criminal activity and gang activity, but a huge impact to the point that I probably will start attending that meeting on a weekly basis. It was that
Wow.
It was that powerful. So sitting in front of my computer, looking at what TTC had to offer and going through the substance use disorder counselor program, it was life-changing, because as being someone who is in recovery and finding other ways to be more compassionate to people who not only look like me, but have the same life experiences of being affected by drugs and alcohol my entire life.
Wow, so you were really looking to get this certification, go through TTC College, mostly because you want to impact the community.
And you have to give it away. So that's one of the big things that you'll find in anything anonymous per se, is that you have to give it away. There's no impact on recovery like one alcoholic, one addict, one gang member helping another, because they're able to see, hey, he's just like me. If he could do it, I can too. So being able to give it away is by far the biggest impact. And as you know, like, I don't work in the field per se, but I'm constantly in the community. I'm constantly finding ways to be an asset to my community. And my community isn't just Black people. It's anybody who is dealing with any type of addiction issues. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you said a lot, so I want to unpack some of this and go a little bit deeper. You know, this is what I do at all times.
Feel free.
But in particular, when you talk about this idea of a community of people.
Correct.
And you're using a 12-step philosophy as part of, this is something that you've learned. We also talk about this at TTC College. We talk about the history of Alcohol Anonymous and the history of Narcotics Anonymous, but you're looking at this from a much wider lens. We're here in Los Angeles, where a big issue in our community is people who need support coming out of jail and prison,
Correct.
people who need support who are former gang members.
Correct.
We were just talking about somebody who was full of tattoos, and for me, I'm like, I've been in this industry for 20 years. So for me, I'm like, that's home.
Yeah.
I'll put on my Jordans in a second. I have on boots today, but I'll put on my Jordans and go down.
Exactly.
And I think that what you're talking about is, hey, we're doing something different now.
Of course.
For hundreds of years, when we've looked at recovery models, when we've looked at how we treat our community, it's been very standardized. But now you're coming in like, I'm part of the new generation. I'm a millennial. I want to make sure that I can reach people who look like me, who are a part of these broader communities. So what does that mean for you to be able to lift up people who may not be seen in certain areas, or where certain counselors, they may be worried, like, I don't know if I'm going to be saved. Like, what is that like for you?
So that's big. So for me personally, it's like when people share at a meeting or inside of a cohort, and you see people who they've been through something, it hits a lot harder than someone who just has the education. So having the education backed by the fact that I look like a lot of the people who are in their beginning stages of recovery, it hits a little bit harder than somebody who comes in their suit, their tie, hey, I've got this degree. Well, when you have somebody who looks the part and they also speak the language, the effects that it has. So you have to have an active listening ear, because you never know who's going to be the person that says something and you're like, that was me. And those aha moments are what save lives.
That really speaks to me. In particular, I remember when we first created this college, and I'm the co-founder along with Dr. Jose Salazar, who, he's my fearless leader. And, the goal of this was, how can we take this structure and this discipline to help people become counselors, and how can we make sure that there's representation everywhere? Yeah. So counselors, like you said, don't just wear suits. No. They wear LA hats. Yep. They wear Jordans.
They do.
They're Yeezys. Trans. Okay. And, they come from all of these different backgrounds. These are people who come out of jail. And so when you go into different settings, when you go into different communities, people see someone who looks like them. Exactly. Who has their experience, and who they can say, I can relate to you. I consider you a peer. 100%. You know what it's like. 100%. You know what I went through. 100%. And so you also build this form of mentor relationship naturally, because you've gone through your process. You've now become a counselor. So what does that mentor process look like for you when you take somebody, when you're like, I know you, I definitely know you because I used to be like that. I used to be you, and let me help pull you up. What does that look like for you?
That's literally like on a daily basis, because we have a relationship outside of what we're doing here today. Like my little brother, who he was looking at a life sentence. He was looking at a 43 to life sentence, and did 7 years of that. He ended up getting out, and he knows. And what's funny about that is, at that meeting of CGA that I attended last night, one of his cellmates was actually at that meeting, who's also been released. Wow! So that's powerful. And a friend of mine who asked me to come to that meeting, he introduced me to this gentleman, and I'm like, hey, I heard you know my little brother. He's like, wow, that's your little brother. And it's an unfortunate thing that, as much as you try to help people, the streets are still going to call you back. And that's where my brother, even at looking at facing a life sentence, is still kind of torn between the two. On one side, he has me, who he has firsthand experience of what we've been through together, and he sees the changes I've made. And then right on that other side, he still has the streets calling him. So it's a very, very, very tricky situation, to where it's a little brother of mine. And I want to help him as bad as I want to help anyone. But if you don't want it, there's not really too much you can do. But the mentor side of it, you being my mentor, of course, I feel that I am a mentor to a couple of guys who facilitated the meeting, because I was the MC of their graduation. We talk on literally a daily basis. So we go down, we eat together, we fellowship together, and then, hey, it's meeting time. We're going to really, hopefully, you're not going to save everyone. We know that. But with our transparency, if we save one, we've did our job.
And I think that a lot of times in this field, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as counselors, as peers, as leaders. I'm an educator.
Of course.
And we say, okay, well, we need to save the world. We need to save every person who comes through our door. And sometimes that can, cause us to, go home and feel bad.
Yeah.
We've had
Yeah.
patients who we've lost.
Yeah.
We've had patients who have overdosed.
Yeah.
We've had, students who have relapsed and gone through different things. But one of the things that we taught you guys, and that's important that we talk about at the college, is you are there for a specific reason.
Yeah.
You're in people's lives for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily to make sure that they save and they never use a drug again and they
You can't.
get off the streets, but it's to be a light.
And what's funny about that is in my song that I performed at graduation, that's like one of my life mantras, is just to be a spark of light for those that are still trapped in the darkness of addiction. I may not be the sun, but that one speck of light will show you which way to go when you're sitting in the dark. So that's what we try to be, is just a speck of light. That's it. That's it. Because unfortunately, you're not going to save everyone. We wish we could. We wish we could have 100% success rate. It's not realistic. It's not realistic. However, I try to live my life in a way that on a daily basis, I show somebody in that day that there is a way, an alternative to the way that you're currently living.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, allegedly, and some people might say that I'm sensitive. They might say that I will cry when I give speeches or do different things because I may or may not be passionate about what I'm talking about. I think that's a big fear for people coming into this field, going into medicine at all.
Of course.
We're at an endemic stage of a international global pandemic where we had a mass exodus of people who left healthcare, nurses, counselors, and part of it was because they had to watch their patients die.
Yeah.
They had to deal with the fact that they were getting sick when they were going to work. We didn't really have breaks. We didn't work from home. We didn't experience that pandemic life.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get scared because they're like, how am I going to come into this field? And what happens if I lose somebody and then I spiral? Or, so we have an entire class in the program that's about personal and professional development.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why we have that is because we want you all to learn how to take care of yourself through self-care practices, through being able to set boundaries, being able to have your own therapist. I stay in the therapist's office. You can imagine my therapy sessions are really interesting, and they are.
Yeah.
But for you,
therapists need therapy too.
Listen, what did you learn from the program that made you feel like even when things get hard, when I'm working with Angelinos, when I'm working with people in recovery, coming out of jail and prison, how do you take care of yourself? And what did you learn that gives you an armor to keep going?
So that's a deep question. You have to build up resiliency, and because I know that I've beat so many odds just to even get into TTC, just to maintain recovery, is the learning portion is something that you have to be open and willing to learn on a daily basis, because life doesn't stop lifing. Things are going to happen on a daily basis. Just a prime example is while I was going through the program, I lost my grandmother at that time. And that's something as close as my grandmother was, as much as my mother as my own mother. So to lose her at that time, it was also another added piece of inspiration and an added piece of motivation to keep doing what I'm doing. So I wouldn't say per se that I learned it in the program. I was taught that by my grandmother.
You already had it instinctually.
It was, like I said, it was just an added piece to, hey, I got to do this because I am that light. I can be that light for someone else. So yeah.
And as somebody who, I develop a lot of lights. I'm trying to create a light revolution in this world. And so everybody who I come across, I want to give them that, hey, you can go out into the world and you can make a change.
Yeah.
We consider ourselves not just people working in healthcare, but we're healers.
Yes.
And whether that's healing on the train,
Yeah.
on the blue line, or whether you're in the medical room, we're actual healers.
Yeah.
How did your learning at TTC College help you with this idea of how can I actually heal people? What tools can I use? What can I discuss? What can I give them?
The verbiage alone, just being able to speak the language helps so much. Being able to speak the language, knowing what you're talking about, knowing that addiction is as much as 70% genetic, being able to have those little bits that you can throw in also with the fact that I am in recovery are those little gems that can help save someone, because you begin to feel like, hey, this isn't always a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't have that ability.
Exactly.
That some people don't. The majority of people don't have that ability to just stop. That's what separates the addict, the alcoholic from a casual user, is that inability to stop, that frontal lobe. And being able to speak that language is what has been the biggest portion where I'm able to transfer. Even when I go to just an AA meeting, they know that, hey, this isn't just someone in recovery. He speaks the language.
Well, and I love that you're talking about the frontal lobe. We're also brain scientists. We're not just in there, dressing well and talking about these different things, but you're also talking about the amygdala, the limbic system, how the body and the brain is actually impacted by substance use and vice versa. Yeah. So people get on certain drugs or alcohol, and it literally changes the composition of your nervous system.
Correct.
And this is something that in our community, we've been working really hard as educators in behavioral health to teach, is that addiction is not a behavioral thing like, oh, I'm upset, so I'm just going to start using drugs. This is a medical condition.
It is. And you're also self-medicating yourself, because I don't like the way I'm feeling. I'm going to do something to stop that feeling. And whether that be, well, of course, with the fentanyl epidemic, whether it be alcohol, whether it be a medical marijuana shop on every corner, these are just ways of me to self-medicate because I'm not happy with how I feel currently. So let me get away from that as quick as possible.
I'm glad you brought up the medical marijuana, because we're in California. We're in Los Angeles in particular, and this is Hollywood. Yeah. And so there are a lot of conversations about how do we promote sobriety? How do we promote people being able to live healthy when they can walk down any block in Los Angeles and find a medical shop? And we know that for people who struggle with addiction and with substance use, that triggers are really, really important.
For sure.
And so what advice do you give to people? When we were growing up, we didn't have to worry about that because people were in jail for having marijuana.
Mass incarcerated.
There was mass incarceration. So marijuana. We didn't really have to worry about that as much.
For sure.
But what we had was liquor stores. And
for sure.
Lupe Fiasco would say, like, there's a liquor store, food and liquor stores in every corner.
Yeah.
So what do you say to people?
So I'm all about the medicinal side of marijuana, because it's undeniable that it does have some positive effects. However, for the person that has that alcoholic addict mindset, for me personally, I don't indulge in it. Although I'm sure it would be great to help me sleep. The reason why I don't is because I know that for me, no matter what it is, there's a saying in Alcoholics Anonymous: 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. I'm not the type that I can take 2 puffs off of a joint and put it down. I'm back full blown. I'm smoking the whole joint. And then after that, I'm going to get thirsty, and it's not going to be for water. So it's just being able to, as they also say, is playing the tape forward. You have to be able to play that entire tape to know what your ending is. And my ending isn't pretty, so I just don't indulge. And there are people like, hey, they're able to get off work and they take a couple tokes, it helps them relax, and they're good. Yeah. But then you have the people who that marijuana is a trigger that can lead them into something much worse. But that's also playing the tape and knowing who you are. So
knowing who you are.
Knowing who you are is big.
Do you see this concept of knowing who you are as important in not only recovery, but your journey at TTC College?
For sure. So one of the big things is you're going to gravitate towards certain people. We know that it tends to be people who look like you, come from similar backgrounds. So I have built relationships with people who were in my same cohort that I still talk to on a regular basis. So
you guys still talk?
We still talk. Theo, my boy Theo, still talk to Theo regularly.
I love my students.
Still talk to Chantel semi-regularly, Marie semi-regularly, and those relationships you build will help carry you through the entire TTC program.
Now, when you first, going back to the beginning, we're going to wrap up this segment, but When you first started at TTC College, did you think that you were going to build these dynamic relationships with your
Definitely
student,
not.
with your
Definitely not.
cohort, your students?
Definitely not. You go in, well, I don't want to say you, I went in with, I'm here for this. However, I ended up making family between you, Haben, like I said, Theo, who's working on things on outside of treatment, and you get to building these relationships, and you have people that you literally are leaning on outside of what I'm actually thought I was coming here for. But that's also knowing who you are. That's also being open-minded. Hey, I'm never going to turn down an authentic and genuine relationship where someone reaching out after my grandmother passed, like, hey, just want to let you know that I care about you. That's big. That's big.
That's our biggest hope for this college, is that we could build a place where people like you, people like Chantel and Theo and Hassan and all these different people.
Hassan too. I didn't even think about that dude.
That they could, you know, I love all my students,
for sure.
That you guys could come and be centralized in a place with a similar mission.
Yes.
And all of you specialize in different ways. Some of you guys specialize in unhoused people. Some of you specialize in working with the reentry population, youth. You specialize in going into South Central.
Yeah.
There's different pockets, but what you guys all did together is absolutely phenomenal. It's a dream to be able to come together and say, we're going to lift each other up while we're trying to lift up the community.
For sure.
And to be lights in this community.
100%.
We'll be right back. So we're back, and we had a dynamic first part of our discussion. I'm really looking forward to getting into where do we go from here, what happened to Bruce after he left the program. And, you know, we're sitting here talking like we don't talk all the time.
Right.
But I think it's important to have these moments so people understand that when we say these things, when we make these speeches about how we love our students, how we care about you guys, that it's not this theoretical thing. Like, you understand that you are loved, you understand that you have a family, that you have places you can go. Thinking back to your time at TTC College as a student, now you mentor people, you come back, you speak to the students, you do all kinds of stuff for the college, which we love, alumni relations. Shout out to all of my old students, over 1,000 students. I need y'all to come back and really lift up our school and our students. But what was your favorite or the best memory that you had as a student in your cohort?
So I would have two. First, it would be the practicum and all the time that I got to spend with you and Haben. Like, that was just like the one-on-one times, the discussions of things that, in a lot of sense, they come off as taboo when you're talking about, like, you know, people talking about death, and we're talking about homelessness, and we're talking about mental health. Those things they're tough conversations that a lot of people don't want to have. Those are conversations that people can tend to be very judgmental. So when you see the average person and you see somebody who's on the street and they may be talking to themselves, or, oh, they're a druggie. They don't understand that a lot of times that person's dual diagnosed. They may be self-medicating with a substance, but they're probably dealing with a much bigger issue. They're probably not taking their medication properly, not taking it at all, or taking too much. So those conversations that we were able to have, that was big.
Let me just stop you for a second, because when you said dual consciousness, you know, like that spoke to me in the sense of you're actually using what we talked about. We talked about co-occurring disorders and how when you have somebody who is both substance use impacted, and they may or may not have a mental health issue as well.
They may be schizophrenic or bipolar, or
that creates its own intersection of need and way of talking to. But I love this piece of you talking about when I was able to connect with you and Haben and have these conversations. What do we call these conversations? How do we let people know what it's like to be in those conversations?
I mean, that's difficult because once again, I can only speak from my personal perspective. It's hard to have that open mind of even having those conversations with people and not being judged based on where you stand and how you feel, because then it kind of, you'll find that it turns into almost a political conversation, because people want to, on certain sides of the fence, feel that, hey, oh, move them all out, and then you have people on this other side of the fence, and they're, well, let's open up facilities, and it's a very difficult conversation to have, and that's why when you find people who are like-minded, what you will tend to find in TTC is you find people who want to help, and we're willing to help it's typically on the opposite side of the people who want to move them out or just get rid of them, because that doesn't solve the problem. That doesn't solve the problem.
I like that you talked about a little bit of educational theory, which is really what that is. When you talk about, we get in the classroom or we get into small groups and we're able to argue, we're able to say, hey, I think medications for addiction treatment is helpful. I think harm reduction is helpful. But then you have some students who are like, listen, I was raised differently. I don't think that having a syringe exchange program is helpful. It is the process of having that conversation that changes the world.
Exactly.
That heals people. It's not about what we personally believe. It's the fact that we're able to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And it's actually a super dope theory that comes from way back in the day with Plato's Academy and with Socrates, and it's the Socratic method. That is how we formed this college. It's like, we want our students to get in the ring and duel it out so that we can figure out how we're going to help this community.
And a lot of times when we had our discussion forums, that's where it would get to, because at times you're going to have somebody who does kind of like piggyback off of whatever seems to be the right answer. But in situations like that, I don't think it is really necessarily a right answer. It's more or less, it is opinion based. It is going to be opinion based, because in my personal opinion, when I see a homeless encampment, I just kind of put my hands over it and I just ask God to bless them, because I don't know what they're dealing with. Fortunately enough for myself, my addiction didn't get me to the point of being homeless and on the streets. But that's why we say also in the rooms of AA and NA is not yet. You could be one bad drink or one bad use away from that. So yeah,
I love that you say that, because a lot of it is about opinion, and we know that we all have varying opinions as counselors. So you don't have to be a big revolutionary to be a counselor.
Of course.
There's one term that we say that's the universal health code, the universal code of everyone who works in healthcare, and that's non-malfeasance.
Yeah.
Do no harm.
Exactly.
Do no harm. And you can keep your personal opinions.
Of course.
You can feel like Matt is not good. You can feel like syringe exchange programs are different things. As long as in your practice, you decide.
I'm not harming anyone.
I'm not harming anyone.
Agreed.
Regardless of where I come from or what I feel. And I love that you brought that up, because it reminds me that is the core of what we teach our students.
Yeah. So that's just kind of where I lay my hat, is like, when I come in and wherever I speak, I'm only going to speak from Bruce's perspective. That's all I have. I don't come in and I'm speaking on behalf of Tarzana Treatment Center College. I'm not. Right. I'm speaking from what I've learned, what I took from the program, and this is how I see it. That's it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You resurrected your grandmother and how important she was to you.
Correct.
And looking back on some of the deepest times that I think you and I have had together, it was around the loss of your mother.
Correct.
And this is something that happened after you became a counselor, after you went through our program. And we related on that because we both have had these really difficult and significant losses in our lives.
Correct.
And this is something we also talk about in the program.
Correct.
But I wonder for you, what was it like to go through that after you've been in the program, and what does your mother mean to you today?
So, and I appreciate you asking that, because that's a beautiful situation. Coming from where we come from, and I don't make it seem like, I came from out of the projects, but we, growing up in Pacoima in the 80s, we experienced the crack epidemic. I watched the uncle.
Yes, sir.
I watched the uncle, die of a crack overdose. Gangbanging was very prevalent in my neighborhoods. So it wasn't peaches and cream. It may not have been Watts, but it definitely wasn't peaches and cream. And I know that every day that I'm making my mother proud, what it does what it does for me as well is it's another reason to show people you can walk through anything, remain sober. You can remain sober, you can remain positive, because as I said earlier, life is life. We don't get to dictate what the next second holds. But I could easily be victim-minded and use that as a reason to, I'm going to get drunk because my mother passed, or I'm going to use because that's being a victim. Nobody's here forever. Nobody's here forever. So I live in the good times that we had versus the times that I'm no longer going to have with her.
And I think that was evident. We got to attend the service, the beautiful service that you put together for your mom. And I remember you speaking. I know that was hard for you because I haven't lost a mother, but I've lost a grandmother and I've lost a partner and people who are important to me. But we were so proud of you as our student because you stood there in front of a whole bunch of people and you were vulnerable. I think you made your mom proud and you were resilient in that moment. You had something to share about your mom's life and about lifting people up.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's something else that I learned from her, because despite her dealing with her own addiction issues, even though that's not what ultimately took her life, my mom was the type that she always had a smile on her face. Like, till I was with her, and one of the biggest blessings was being able to be by her bedside until her final breath. Wow. Most people don't get that opportunity. So to be able to look in her eyes and tell me that she was proud of me, and me tell her that I'm proud of her, and loving on one another until her final breath, it was such a beautiful moment, because a month prior I was in Dubai. I don't know how I would have handled that situation had she passed while I was gone. So being able to come, and I know, and that's my belief in my higher power that I call God, allowed me to get back, allowed me to be with her until her final breath. So it was a beautiful situation. I wouldn't trade that for the world.
It was our honor to attend and to just be there for you. You guys are not just our students
at all.
You are family at TTC College, and we take that very seriously.
And that's something that I wouldn't trade either, because you'll find a lot of establishments that are going to make it seem like, a lot of corporations, we're a family.
Right.
Come with us. And the second something goes wrong, they're nowhere to be found.
Radio silence.
And I've got the complete opposite with my experience at Tarzana Treatment Center. Because I was actually an alumni through their actual rehabilitation. Although I didn't stay sober at that time. That's not what got me sober. However, life experience and a depression and being suicidal but wanting to live is what ultimately is the reason that got me sober and has given me my purpose in life, is knowing that I can help people. Yeah.
And look at you out here living. You're not just wanting to live, but you're definitely living. I love that you also talked about being a patient, because a lot of people think, I've been through rehab, or I've been in the program, so I don't know if I can become a counselor. It's like, you guys are some of the best counselors because you understand what it's like to detox. You understand what it's like to be in a residential setting or an outpatient clinic. And that's not an experience that's easy.
No.
And it's not easy to understand unless you've been in those shoes.
No, and to add to that, the fact that prior to going through Tarzana Treatment Centers College, I had not been to school since I graduated in 1999.
Right, okay, so that's not unique either, because a lot of our students say the same thing. Yeah. We have students who are like, hey, Dr. Golden, I'm nervous just because I haven't written a paper for school in 30 years.
Yeah, and I consider myself I'm pretty good with words, but now I have to relearn formatting it into the proper like this. I can't do a run-on sentence anymore.
It's not the 99 and 2000s anymore.
It's not.
It's not. Literally 23, 24. Yeah. And so now we have all these different formats. We're now doing PowerPoints and videos in class and all this stuff. So, I think that's something that's important for people to know. You don't have to be an expert in Excel and in all of these new programs.
They will help you.
And that's our goal. We're a small school. We don't have we have a lot of staff.
You do have a lot of staff.
Believe me, but we don't have this, we're not UCLA, so we all pitch in to help out and to do some of those things. So I'm glad to hear that. Now, let's talk about what you're doing now. Where are you at now, and how are you thinking about incorporating this certification program into the rest of your life?
Okay, so where I'm at now is I'm not someone who works in the field per se. As stated, anytime I'm asked to come out and speak, that's something that I do. So that's, in my opinion, that's giving back. That's using my certification because I am that light for some people who walking through TTC. Like I said at the CGA meeting, showing people that there is another way. Me gaining my substance use disorder counselor certification was because of my lifestyle brand. I have a lifestyle brand that's called Forever Humble. It's based around mental health, awareness, addiction. We're in the trademark phase currently. We'll be launching realistically probably the last quarter of this year. It's fashion based. It's t-shirts. It's sweatsuits, and they're eye busters is what they call them in the gang world. They're things that are going to get your attention.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I need to. You have to translate.
Yeah. So they're made to get your attention because of the trademark process. I can't say too much more than that. Forever Humble lifestyle brand is what the brand is called. But yeah, that's
and
what
why can't we consider that a form of outreach, a form of counseling? This is what we talk about in the program. Is that first of all, we are in the digital age.
Yeah.
We are in the age of artificial intelligence. We're in the age of the metaverse.
Right.
We use artificial intelligence in class. We have the big VR headsets you guys put on and go through different things. So why does it have to be like what we're doing right now to be considered counseling? Do you think that having a clothing line, do you think that having a camp for youth, different ways, like, is that also substance use counseling?
For sure it is, because putting it on is bringing that awareness, because it's telling a story when you put it on. It's opening the eyes for people who normally may not care. I mean, you have certain people in the world, they don't care about the homeless. They don't care about the addict because they're living a way that they feel is completely opposite of that lifestyle. But everybody knows someone who's struggling with addiction. Everyone knows someone who's struggling with mental health. And if we go on the actual medical side of it, if you look at all of the problems that they have in healthcare with misdiagnosing, with giving people the wrong medications or overfeeding people medications. So those are all conversations that have to be had.
Yeah, over-medicating, giving the wrong diagnoses. We talk a lot in our program because intersectionality and diversity is a major, it might be the biggest and most important component of what we do at TTC College, is to talk about you can't treat everybody the same.
Cannot.
You have to be able to understand the cultures that people come from so that you know how to work with them.
For sure. And that's one of the things that I loved about being a student at TTC is seeing all of the different types of people coming in, whether Black, brown, indigenous, whether homosexual, whether gay, whether transgender. For me personally, it's a beautiful situation to see everybody come together for one common cause. We're all here to help people. And that's all that matters, is we're here to help.
We're here to help. We're here to heal.
Yeah.
And we're here to be lights in the community.
Yeah.
So thinking about that, if you were to talk to someone who's like, Bruce, I don't know. Now, all of this sounds good, but you sound like somebody who's very accomplished and you have done all these things, so it makes sense that you would go through this. What would you tell the person who's interested, who's like, I don't know if this field is right for me. I don't know if I have the grit or the insight, or, if I'm young enough, or if I'm old enough, or, I have a disability, or what would you tell them about why you think that they would be right for this field?
Because everybody's perfect for it. Because addiction is every age, addiction is every gender, addiction is every shape, size,
every income bracket. We're in Hollywood, but we know.
Every income bracket, every age bracket, every tax bracket. It does not. Yeah. Addiction is everywhere. So I don't feel that anyone should exclude themselves based on their appearance, their age, their gender, their sexuality, because addiction touches every one of those things.
Wow. No, I really love that. In particular, we were meeting yesterday with one of the founders of the group WAR. And, WAR is a big deal in the community, especially in the Black and brown community. They're LA natives, low riders, Cisco Kid. And one of the things that they told us at the college was that we have a responsibility to our community to give back, to make sure that we lift them through substance use. How are you giving back outside of having a clothing line, outside of the work that you do, going to some of these groups? Any other ways that you're giving back?
So one of the ways that I'm giving back is, like, for instance, we were talking about a friend of mine. She has a nonprofit. She's doing a roller skating event to help bring awareness and help people on the creative side of things, whether it be art, the arts, things of that nature. So I help by the impact that social media has on the world.
Yeah.
The second somebody that I know that is involved in doing anything positive, it's just the push of a button to share somebody's video, just the push of a button to share somebody's post. So that's what I try to do, is like, I just want to help people as much as I possibly can. So it seems very simple to just to push a button, and it is, but a lot of people don't. So I just try to spread as much positivity as I can on a daily basis.
That's a big point, because now that we're talking about the future of substance use, the future of counseling, you brought up social media. Now, I'm not on social media. I am on LinkedIn, but I'm not on Instagram and Snapchat. I'm wondering, do you see a resurgence of SUD counseling, of addiction, of outreach on social media?
It definitely should be. I don't see that. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, because you have so many people. Of course, like, the number one thing for the generation. Of course, I have a big age gap between my daughters, of one being 21 and one being 8. But
so one's Gen Z and one's Generation Alpha.
So when you get into that, the number one thing that you ask a kid nowadays what they want to be. Oh, I want to be an influencer. I want to, and it takes a lot of time. But if you can get that one influencer that makes it cool to be sober and to be anti what the world right now, in a sense, everybody's using, and we're losing a lot of people behind that. So yeah, I mean, I definitely know that is going to be the way to go. That is the internet is the way of the world. So that's just another way to reach people.
So as substance use counseling practitioners, we can partner with some influencers, and that's pretty brilliant, because we haven't really done it at the college. Where it's like, okay, well, let me work with this Instagram influencer to also promote this message of, hey, let's help people get healthy. Let's let them know there are places in their community that will help them with their substance use issues.
Yeah.
And before, we used to talk theoretically about this, but you brought up the big F word earlier in our discussion, which is really terrorizing and killing people left and right from all communities. I mean, we see we saw it with the loss of Prince.
Yeah.
Our biggest, one of our biggest icons from our entire generation,
Yeah.
Prince, Whitney, Michael. And then we also see it with our new entertainers and young people who are dying of fentanyl. What can we do to help with this fentanyl crisis?
I think that, because that's also, once again, it's such a touchy subject, because majority of people who end up on fentanyl typically started on the medical side. They typically were on some form of an opiate.
Yeah.
No longer was being prescribed that opiate, ends up with heroin, and now heroin is fully pretty much fentanyl now. So it's, once again, that's a very heavy topic, because the majority of people who end up using heroin, fentanyl, started off on some type of opiate. So
yeah, it's a really big deal. And so everywhere we go, we want people to know, if you don't have Narcan, if you don't have Clexato or something that will reverse an opioid overdose, will save a life. We have a program where one of our staff has trained almost 200 librarians in the last calendar year on how to use Narcan. They call them all the time. Hey, Warren, we just saved somebody's life outside of the downtown library.
Yeah.
That's everybody's responsibility.
Yeah.
It's all of ours to have
I agree.
that. So, Bruce, I could talk to you all day.
And we will.
And will. I think that I am so proud of you for not only the man, you've always been this man, but you represent our college so well.
I appreciate
Wherever
that.
you go, you speak in a way that is impactful, that's meaningful to people, and you're the very best representation
I appreciate that.
of what we want to do.
I
with our
appreciate that very
students.
much. And finally, like for me, I feel that TTC. I was already a seed. But I feel that TTC college really helped me to blossom. I really feel that at the like I said, if I'm not someone who I don't necessarily work in the field, but you guys helped me to sprout. So I'm thankful.
Well, now the field has expanded, so you do work in the field.
Yeah, I mean,
and
true,
we want
true.
everybody to know that you all can work in the field too as well. So reach out to us. Thank you,
Definitely.
Bruce, for being here
Thank
with
you.
me, for sharing this moment.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you,
Thank
and
you.
I'm excited to see what else you do with the rest of your time.
Stay tuned.
That's my time. Thank you so much. We're glad that you were able to meet us and to hear a little bit of our stories. So blessings, and take care of yourself. Be healthy.
Brought to you by Tarzana Treatment Centers. You can visit our website at www.tarzanatc.org or call 1-800-996-1051.